Hello friends, welcome to the Viva Voce of Anatomy. Today we discuss about atypical ribs. Now we already know the first, second, 10, 11, 12. The first two and the last three ribs are an atypical rib. Now we discuss one by one. First we discuss about the first. The first rib is a shortest, broadest and most curved rib. Shortest, broadest and the most curved rib. The first rib is not having a costal groove and the shaft is not twisted. Shaft is flattened from above downwards, so it is having the upper surface, lower surface, outer border and inner border. Now we first discuss about the feature of the first rib, then side determination. The first rib, like a typical rib, having anterior end, posterior end and the shaft. Anterior end is thicker and the larger than the typical rib and contain the oval facet for the articulation with the first costal cartilage. The posterior end is having head, neck and tubercle. Now, the head is rounded and having a single facet which articulate with the side of a body of a first thoracic vertebra to form vertebro-costal joint. Neck is rounded, it is not flattened like a typical rib and it is directed upward laterally and the backward. The tubercle is small and it articulates with the transverse process of a first thoracic vertebra to form the costo-transverse joint. Now the angle of a rib, it coincides, lies at the same level of a tubercle. Right, so this is the anterior and the posterior end. Now the surfaces or first shaft surfaces, upper surface and the lower surface. Upper surface is marked by the two shallow groove which is separated by very faint ridge and this ridge is well marked near the inner border. This is the most important feature of the first rib to identify the site. Superior surface, again it is marked by a two oblique shallow groove separated by the very faint ridge which is well marked near the inner border and this is known as a scalene tubercle. Okay. Inferior surface is smooth and having absent of costal groove. Okay, this is the inferior surface. Outer border is a convex. It is thick behind and thin in front and the inner border is a concave. On the inner border there is a scalene tubercle. So these are the feature of the first rib. Now the side determination. If you know the feature, automatically you can identify the rib. The anterior end is broad, posterior end is rounded, contain the head, neck, tubercle. Okay. Superior surface is marked by the two shallow groove and separated by a scalene tubercle near the inner border. So this surface should lie superiorly. Okay. Now the trick to identify the first rib is you should put the rib on the table. So when it is of a correct side, then two ends of a first rib will touches the table. If you Now my rib is of a left side. If I consider it is of a right side and put it on the right side, then the one end will elevate it from the table. The two end will not touch the table. So this rib is of a left side. Now we see the attachment and the relation of the first rib. The relation particularly is important for the Viva point of view. The first, relation of the neck. Neck anterior part of the neck, remember, from medial to lateral is related to sympathetic chain, posterior intercostal vein, superior intercostal artery and ventral ramus of a first thoracic nerve. So first thing is a sympathetic chain, then vein, V, artery, A, nerve. So you can remember the mnemonic chain pulling vein, VAN, sympathetic chain, posterior intercostal vein, superior intercostal artery, T1. The superior surface of a neck is related to the C8 nerve, 8 cervical nerve, and the deep cervical vessels. Now the important relation of a superior surface. It is marked by the two oblique shallow. Out of this, the anterior groove lodges the subclavian vein, posterior groove lodges the subclavian artery, and the lower trunk of the brachial plexus. So these are the important relation of a first rib. Now we see the attachment. Attachment superior surface near its anterior end, it gives origin to the subclavius muscle from anterior part, and posterior to it provides the attachment of costoclavicular ligament. Now, the scalene tubercle receives the insertion of a scalenus anterior. The large rough elongated part behind the groove for the subclavian artery, this part receives the insertion of scalenus medius. Now the lower surface. The lower surface is related to the costal pleura and the first intercostal nerve, which is very small. Now the inner border provides the attachment of the suprapleural membrane or Simpson's fascia. The outer border provides the attachment of an external intercostal muscle and the upper half of first digitation of a serratus anterior muscle. So this is all about the first rib. Now we will move to the second rib. First, identification of the second rib. The second rib is shaft is curved like that of first rib, and it is its length is twice the length of the first rib. Okay, so it is like a first rib, most curved, and the length is twice that of the first rib. Now the tubercle is very small. Here you can see the tubercle is small. The angle is also slight, and angle lies near to the tubercle. Okay, angle is slight, it lies very close to the tubercle. The shaft, the most important feature lies in the shaft. The shaft is not twisted like a typical rib. It is having the outer surface which is facing more upward than the outwards. The outer surface near its middle part, you can see it presents the large rough tubercle. Remember, this is a unique feature of the second rib, right? Large rough tubercle on the outer surface. The inner surface is more facing downward than the inward, and the inner surface near the posterior end, it is marked by a narrow costal groove. Its upper border is marked by two distinct ribs or lips on the posterior part, and the lower border is a shaft. So this is a identification and the feature of a second rib. Now the attachment, we see the attachment of the second rib. There are only few attachment of the second rib. The large rough tubercle on the outer surface receives the attachment of lower half of a first digitation and entire second digitation of serratus anterior muscle. Now the upper border behind this tubercle, large upper border, rough upper border behind the tubercle provides the attachment, insertion of the scalenus posterior and insertion of serratus posterior superior. So these are the attachment of a second rib. Now we move to the next atypical rib, that is the 10th rib. The 10th rib, the identification of the 10th rib is it is shorter and it is like a typical rib, but only the feature is its head is having a single facet which articulate with the side of the body of the 10th thoracic vertebrae. So this is a 10th rib. Now we see the last two rib together. The 11th and the 12th rib are the shortest rib. The 12th rib being the most short rib. They are having the pointed end. Now in the both the rib, the neck and the tubercle are absent. But in the 11th rib, the angle and the costal groove is poorly marked, whereas these two are absent in the 12th rib. So in the 12th rib, remember all the featured neck, tubercle, angle and the costal groove are absent, whereas in the 11th rib, costal groove and the angle is poorly marked. Okay. Now from the costal groove you can identify the side of the 11th rib, this of the right side. But here there is a, in the 12th rib there is a no costal groove, so there is a difficulty of side determination. So remember the 12th rib, we first see the feature and the side determination together. The 12th rib is lies obliquely in the posterior thoracic cage. So it is having the anterior end and the posterior end. Anterior end is facing anterolaterally and posterior end is facing posteromedially. Anterior end we know it is pointed and the posterior end is a broad, contain the single facet. Now the shaft is flattened antero-posteriorly, you can say. So it is having the anterior surface, posterior surface, upper border, lower border. Now the anterior surface, that is the inner surface, is a concave and the smooth, and the posterior surface is convex and the rough. Upper border is thicker and the lower border is thinner. So by that way, from the lower border you can identify the side determination. So this rib, 12th rib, is of a left side. Now we see the important attachment of the 12th rib. The first, the anterior surface, this one. The anterior surface in the medial half here. In the medial half, in its lower part, it receives the insertion of quadratus lumborum and attachment of fascia covering the quadratus lumborum. Now the lateral part of the anterior surface in its upper part provides the attachment of the diaphragm, and in the lower part provides the attachment of transversus abdominis muscle. Postodiaphragmatic recess is related to the medial part of an anterior surface. So these are the attachment of an anterior or inner surface. Now the posterior surface. This is the posterior surface, this is the medial half, this is the lateral half. So the medial half is providing attachment from mediolaterally to the levator costi, the longissimus thoracic and iliocostalis muscle, whereas the lateral half from medial to lateral provides the attachment of serratus posterior inferior, latissimus dorsi and external oblique muscle of abdomen. Now move to the borders. Upper border provides attachment of external and internal intercostal muscle. Lower border provides the attachment of middle layer of the thoracolumbar fascia, lateral arcuate ligament and lumbocostal ligament near the head. So this is about the 12th rib. Now we see one important things about the 12th rib. The 12th rib will form the renal angle. What is renal angle? The renal angle is formed by the lower border of 12th rib and the lateral border of erector spinae muscle on the back. Important of the renal angle, the posterior surface of both the kidney lies in close relation to the renal angle. So some disease of the renal angle, in some disease you can apply the thumb on the renal angle, the patient will feel the tenderness. So this is about the renal angle. So this is all about the typical and the atypical rib. Now we move to some anomalies of ribs. The first, the cervical rib. Normally there lies the 12 pair of a rib. In some individual there is a one extra rib above the first rib, which is known as a cervical rib. Same way, there may be some extra rib lies below the 12th rib, which is known as a lumbar rib or a gorilla rib. So this is all about rib. Thank you.
If you like our video, click on the like button and share with your friends. To get the regular updates on anatomy video by Viva Voce of Anatomy, subscribe to our channel and click on the bell icon.